the was launched.
Good day, everyone. Welcome to another episode of AF24NEWS Talks. I'm your host, Ibom Deji-Folutile, and I am joined by Dr. Olabisi Deji-Folutile, a director here at AF24NEWS. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
On today's episode, we're going to be talking about the airline confrontations that we've been having, over the past week or so. We've had two instances of mayhem, on the tarmac, if you could put it that way. One with the Fuji legend, KWAN, and the other with a civilian lady just a few days ago. And today we are going to be talking about the aftermath of those. Those were two instances that were responded to very swiftly by the authorities and with judgment as well. I think in the first case we had a pilot who moved the plane when other people were on the tarmac, and her license was suspended, and there was also a ban placed on the passenger themselves because of the situation. And the same thing happened on Sunday, because we had a passenger who was on the airline, an Ibom Air flight, I think Q309, and she was flying from Uyo to Lagos, and she didn't follow the policy or the directive to turn off your phone, which everyone who has flown on a plane before knows that when the plane is about to take off, we're always asked to turn off our phones to reduce the risk of interference with the other airplane instruments and equipment. And her refusal to do so led to a series of back and forth, so to speak, that eventually ended in a violent altercation between the passenger and the flight attendant. So I think I want to specifically focus on the effect or the responses that we've had in the two instances. Starting from the KWAN situation, it was speculated that he was drunk, or that he was told not to drink on the flight, and he claimed that it was water that was in his flask, not alcohol, and all of that. I think from a safety perspective, first of all, do you think that the reaction of the airport authority was commensurate, or should I put it that way, to the situation at hand at the time?
Well, first of all, let me say that it is good that authorities responded to the two acts that you mentioned. In the case of the Fuji musician, he attempted to stop the plane by his hand, and he didn't want the plane to move. And the pilot, probably because she was also angry, attempted to move the plane. And in the course of doing so, the wing of the plane nearly blew off the head of the musician, which was very wrong. It was a risk the pilot took, because something terrible could have happened to KWAN. In suspending the pilot's license, I think the authorities acted swiftly, even though they mentioned that the pilot it was the musician that angered, that it was the action of the musician that led to the pilot's action. But that notwithstanding, that was done. And concerning the Fuji legend too, he was also suspended from flying for 6 months. In the case of comfort, now I see that as a case of dual assault now, because from the videos that have surfaced online, it was alleged that the lady didn't put off her phone before the aircraft took off from Ibom. The flight was billed to come to Lagos. But it was also inferred that somebody switched that phone off on her behalf. But at the end of the day, what we saw in the case of that lady, even though the authorities also moved swiftly, I think I see some drama around the way the case of the lady's case was handled compared with the way the KWAN stories was handled. And it gives the impression that in the case of KWAN, one could see a deliberate act of civility in the way the issue was handled. But in the case of this lady, I am seeing, what I can see is that even though the authorities are responding, but there is a harsher way of responding in the case of that lady than the first one. Because right now, the lady is already in Kirikiri. She has been remanded in Kirikiri. But if we look at the KWAN case, for example, the guy is still walking around. Nobody is taking any such action against him. Besides, this lady has been banned by Airlines Operators of Nigeria for life, indefinitely, permanently. We didn't get that kind of reaction to the musician's story. And also, understandably, Ibom Airline has banned the lady from flying their airline. But if I want to go deeply into the video I saw, I think the kind of drama, because I saw that lady actually being pulled out of the aircraft by men to the point that the clothes she was wearing was torn and her boobs were exposed. I think that is a very cruel way of handling a situation. I mean, why nobody will support the lady not obeying the crew officials. At the same time too, it is also difficult to support the way the security officials handle the lady, because they made it to look like it was more than what it was. For me, it's like creating an unnecessary drama around the way that case was handled. And I'm saying that because there are better ways of handling such situation. For example, let me start by saying that air rage is not new. Is a thing that is that we've read about. There have been different instances and cases of, altercations between passengers and crew members all over the world. But there are standard ways of handling this kind of issues. In the case of that lady, and it has happened in the past. For example, I have read about some crew members that have shared their experiences, even when this thing happened. And they said they've gone through so many things in the hands of passengers. One lady said there was a time a wealthy female passenger asked her to go and throw away the pampers of a child, which was containing some poo, And she told the passenger that I handle food and I can't handle poo. I use my hands to handle food. I can't use it to hand. And the passenger was angry with the crew member. There was another instance where a senior military official wanted to carry his own arm into the aircraft and hand it over to the captain of the flight. He refused to allow the security people on ground to handle his gun. You get it? Which is not according to law. But eventually, the captain of the flight took it from him and all of that. And I learned that senior military official still wanted the lady to be sacked. So there are different ways that passengers deal with crew members or whatever. But I think the standard way of responding in this case is that the crew, the air attendant could have reported to the captain of the flight. The captain of the flight could have reported to the air authorities, the people that control flight and the rest. I think they have a name. They call the control officers. If they report the incident to them, that there is somebody in the aircraft that refused to switch off his or her phone, those people can report to the ground officials at the airports that the lady is going to.
I think we should go from that straight into talking about the justification of a lifetime ban, because just before on Monday, it was reported that the airline authorities or the airline operators of Nigeria have issued like a blanket ban on lifetime ban on the lady. I think her name is Christina also.
Comfort
Emanson.
Okay.
Let me start that part again.
Okay.
So it was also reported on Monday that the airline operators of Nigeria have issued like a blanket ban on Comfort, and also even upheld, or they stood firmly behind Ibom Air for the reaction to the situation and how it was handled. We also saw an aide to the Minister of Aviation also take the side of the airline and, so to speak, even dismiss the case of the lady who is now in prison as we speak. She has been remanded, as you said earlier. So I want to just ask if public safety is, in this specific scenario, if you think it's justification enough for such a decision, especially contrasting it with the case of what we had happen on Friday with the KWAN situation, because on the eye that seems a much more consequential confrontation than what happened. From what we learned, the lady's phone was eventually switched off before takeoff, and the entire debacle that ended in physical altercation happened after landing. So it seems like the most of the or the worst of it was over before this entire thing happened.
Well, actually, I think if we want to look at safety of passengers and crew, what KWAN did was more dangerous to both the passengers and the crew, because he obstructed the airplane. That, as for the lady, he harassed or assaulted a crew member or maybe officials of the airline. Both of them committed offenses. But if we want to look at safety, I think what KWAN did was more dangerous than what the lady did, because in the case of the lady, everybody had already disembarked from the plane. They had already arrived in Lagos, and even the phone was switched off before takeoff. So in terms of posing threats to life, security, or anything, I think that was minimal. And what you also asked if the punishment was commensurate to the act. Mm-hmm. From what has happened now, it will look like that the punishment for the lady was far much more than what was meted to KWAN, who probably did what was more dangerous, both to what constituted more danger to both crew and members. And also my own worry in this case is that it's like we are dealing with similar issues with different approaches. You are like two laws, like having two laws that guide the citizens of the country, because the speed at which this lady was tried and remanded, we didn't see that kind of speed in the case of KWAN. Some people are already talking about forgiving KWAN and ending the 6-month ban placed on him, that they should remember his good works and forgive him. It brings to fore again the fact that in Nigeria, probably there are different laws for the poor and the rich. When I want to talk about this issue, I always bring myself back to my research work during my doctoral program, where I researched the way law enforcement agencies deal with poor offenders and compared with rich offenders. The conclusion of the matter was that the rich offenders are always treated with
lighter judgment.
Yes, they
Kid gloves.
Yes, kid gloves. Whereas, in fact, the conclusion was that justice could only be obtained when the poor is the offender. But when the rich is the offender, justice shall not. In fact, from that study, I realized that even the poor that are offended often seek for leniency. They are the ones that we even say they don't want prosecution of the rich. They are the ones, for whatever reason, maybe they will have been induced to say so and all of that. And the policemen actually said that it is very, very difficult to bring the rich to book for whatever crimes they commit in Nigeria. This is also showing that she was times 10 assaulted. She was more than times 10 assaulted by the officials of that airline. And unfortunately, nobody is even looking at things from this perspective. Yes, it is the person that you can deal with, that you are happy to deal with. You understand? They just, that is cool enough in Kirikiri. And this is to let people know. Did he talk like that when KWAN was boasting? If I want to now believe that, if not even for public uproar, probably the case of KWAN could have been swept under the carpet. You get, after all, we saw them, they were pleading with him on that tarmac that day. They were pleading with him. The person that was holding the plane, they were trying to plead with him. Nobody rough-handled him. Nobody touched him. Nobody said any harsh word against him. Everybody was pleading with him, and they were like, we will handle the case. Please, sir, we will handle it. We will do this. And he kept on using his phone and threatening that he was going to call this, call that. Nobody dared move near him to hold him. And even in spite of that, the man still threatened that he was going to still deal with the owner of the airline that refused him that flight to where they should learn to treat everybody equally. What I could see from this is that there is
Us, on this live session, what do you think about the judgment? Is it like the lifetime ban? Is it a fair judgment, or is it an overreach, as you described it? Is it also um, is this also is there a larger reason for the sort of the reaction that we get from the agencies and from the authorities? And also, just on the lighter note as well, if you have any stories of uh, rage, as you were putting it